All right, there's 4 different levels of vibe marketing. As you progress from 1 to 4, you gain efficiency, leverage, and quality as you move through these steps. You also expand your surface area. So you go from being able to do research or, basic content creation to building, full-blown websites or micro tools, internal automations, things like that. And truly, one marketer gains the power of 10 people. I've seen it happen in real time within our community, and today I'm going to walk you through each level of vibe marketing. Within these levels, I'm going to give you a few recommended tactics, how to get the most out of each level, and some tips for how to progress up to level 4. So level 1 is when you're using LLMs basically in your day job. You're using ChatGPT 03. Hopefully you're using Gemini 2.5 Pro. You're using Manus. These are great LLM interfaces and tools for doing research, understanding what your competitors are doing, understanding gaps and opportunities in your marketplace, creating, content and brand guides, even different artifacts like dashboards or reports or things like that. The problem is that when you're working in one LLM, there's a lot of context switching. So maybe I use GPT-03 for competitor research, but I really like to use Claude because it does a better job at nailing my brand voice for content creation. So I'm switching between these 2 LLMs, and I call that context switching. So I'm going from where the research is done, I have to, copy some kind of information or something like that, and then go and paste it into Claude to give it the context of what I'm trying to do. And I'm essentially working in silos using, various tools for different jobs. There's better ways to do it, and we're going to talk about that in the next levels. But while we're here, I'll give you a few tips for getting the most out of level 1. One is, what LLMs you're going to use for different tasks. For me, I like to use O3 and Gemini 2.5 Pro as well as Manus for all my research tasks. I'll use it for things like, competitor analysis, gap analysis, which is very important. What's happening in the market that, my competitors are missing that I can take advantage of. I'll use Claude to create different types of content ranging from, social to informational content on my website, maybe lead magnets, emails, things like that. To get the most out of level 1, I talk about this a lot. You have to do 2 things. 1, you have to know what questions to ask, and 2, you have to know what good looks like. So if you don't know what questions to ask, you're not going to be able to allow AI to guide you along the way. So, for instance, I'll lead you through an example prompt and we can unpack it a little bit with these 2 guidelines. So I wrote a prompt here. This is kind of how I write prompts. I'm saying you're a growth marketing expert that works with prosumer AI products targeting SMBs. You specialize in elevated direct response that blends a creator's relatability with conversion-focused content. I'd like you to analyze my website and give me your 10 best content ideas that will attract and convert visitors in our ICP, which is Growth Marketing Leads at Tech Startups, to a free trial of our product. Consider organic social, organic search, LLM discovery, rank each channel and associated opportunities within those based on perceived effort and impact. So let's unpack that a little bit here. So I'm framing up the LLM. I'm saying you're a growth marketing expert that works in, this certain industry, vertical, or niche. So I'm trying to frame it to have some expertise that's relevant to what I'm looking for. If you don't know what channels to attack, I'm already mentioning what it should consider. Consider organic social search and LLM discovery. You could say, hey, you're a growth marketing expert that works in, your industry or your niche. What types of channels should I be focused on without having to spend money on ad dollars, for example? And then from there, maybe you're digging in and asking it to recommend the right channel for you based on visiting your website and understanding your competitors and what's happening in your industry. So from there, maybe you're, digging into a specific channel and then asking for strategies and tactics based on the amount of effort and impact that those might have. So that's how I would kind of go about, prompting an LLM to find some opportunities for growth and for vibe marketing. From there, obviously, you can keep working with the LLMs. You can, try to create those assets there based on the voice or whatever you're trying to achieve, or based on what you need to go and execute against one of these marketing channels. So recommended tactics to squeeze the most out of level 1 would be setting up MCPs within Claude. So, the ones that I use, I really only use 4 MCPs when I work with LLMs, whether it's, working with Claude or something like that, or working in Cursor, which is in level 3. I recommend Perplexity, Data for SEO, Appify, and Firecrawl. These can completely handle 99% of your research and strategy building tasks if you're activating those in Claude. For example, how might the prompt change? You might say, you're a growth marketing expert that works with prosumer AI products targeting SMBs. Use the Perplexity MCP to go and identify my top 10 competitors for my website, which is whatever.com. So it'll use Perplexity, which is highly efficient and skilled at research, to go out there, analyze the market, look at competitors, and most likely find things that you aren't able to think about on your own. So once you find those competitors, maybe you'll use the Data for SEO MCP to say, hey, use the Data for SEO MCP to identify the top 10 keyword opportunities for me to go and rank for in our niche that our competitors are currently not ranking for. So that's a way that I would do that. You could use the Appify and Firecrawl MCPs to go and scrape information from competitors. Maybe you want to go and get an idea of what they're writing about, what kind of brand voice they're using, what they're doing in terms of copy on their website, what they're doing on social, and get all that information as context within your LLM. This prevents, hallucination and, Claude, for example, in this case, from, making things up, and it creates a more focused and targeted data set for you to work off of to create these assets and artifacts that you can actually put to work. Now, going through that and going from this initial prompt and research and asking questions to actually arriving at something that I can go put into action is, kind of disjointed. And that's where level 2 comes in. In level 2, you build workflows. If you're online, if you're on X, if you're anywhere these days on social, you've seen workflows, you've seen the screenshots of Innate-In and Gumloop and things like that. Now, this allows you to escape that siloed approach and automate these manual or semi-manual tasks that you're doing. Reducing the amount of context switching you have to go through. And especially if you have something that, let's say you're doing this research on a weekly or a monthly basis to come up with new content ideas, you can automate that. Those can be sent in to where you're working with your team or something along those lines. So it's about chaining these actions together. So if you start at level 1, you really have to kind of audit your process. One of my best tips for doing that is if you have a research flow to start with, let's say, understanding what your competitors are doing, to then create a piece of content, record yourself doing it with Loom. And then you can upload a video or something like that into the LLM and say, hey, how could we automate this with Gumloop? How could we automate this with Innate-In? Help me think through the logic of these steps that I'm doing and recommend the different nodes that I could activate in this workflow to automate it. Help me go from 0 to 1. Now, it's unlikely that it's going to create a workflow out of the box, like one shot that you can go and like paste into Innate-In or something like that, but it's a starting point. You have to learn how to use these tools. You have to go and learn how to configure the nodes, etc. So, it's kind of like a series of if-then statements. So, if a new competitor comes up in my market, research what keywords they're ranking for, understand the gaps, etc., alert me when that's happening. And then, if that's one of my target keywords, create a blog post and publish it on my website, something like that. This is where you really start to unlock like a bunch of new efficiency and leverage. And this is where most of the vibe marketing that you see online is kind of happening right now. However, I think that a lot of people are trying to sort of retrofit very complicated things that could be done in code into workflow building tools, which we'll talk about in a bit. So an example workflow that I would recommend looking into would be go to Gumloop. They have a SEMrush keyword node. Have it go and find 10 keywords for you. Figure out how to organize those in a Google Sheet. Use an AI node to loop over each one of those rows. Create a targeted content brief based on your brand voice. Send it to Slack for approval. And then once it's approved or something like that, create a draft that you can review. If you like it, you can go and publish it on your website. So to do that manually, to find the keywords, to organize them, to research them, to create, optimized briefs for each one, and then actually write or have an LLM create that content would take you a long time. And this can really free you up from doing a lot of manual work that otherwise you may have been doing in the past. So a few tactics, Gumloop, Innate-In, learn how to use these AI and agent nodes. You can essentially arm an AI with various tools that it can use to help complete your task, to get relevant information and input, and do it in a highly efficient way. Using these AI nodes also reduces the amount of steps and complications that you might have in your workflow otherwise. So really, in my view, one of the main benefits of this workflow automation stage is you start to understand the logic of how these tools work together, how data flows, how to automate things. You can really figure out what might be good for an automation or a tool or something like that. And eventually, you start to move to level 3 once you see some of the inefficiencies of workflow automation in level 2. So level 3 is when you really unlock vibe coding. So most people with vibe coding, they start with Replit, Bolt, Lovable, V0, something like that. I'm a Replit fan for beginners. It handles a lot of vibe coding things for you that otherwise you would have to go and learn and set up if you're kind of unfamiliar with like development and getting a development environment going. You can deploy, it handles a lot of security stuff for you. You can easily set up a database, store your API keys, things of that nature. Now, I saw this quote from Naval that really got my head spinning the other day. And this is one of the reasons why I think level 3 is so important. So he said that AI is a form of leverage. Leverage increases the returns to those who use it. Software engineers are gaining leverage relative to everyone else. And that's because vibe coding is the most mature agentic use of AI available right now. So if you think about being able to prompt and get something to completion that can have an impact on your business, that's really what vibe coding, in my view, is all about, and where a lot of the opportunity lies in it. So after you start using Replit and Bolt and things like that, eventually you start to see the power of these coding agents. And to truly unlock those, eventually you will move into Cursor and set up Claude Code. So I'm in Cursor right now. I just have a notepad open. Cursor is really an interface for a lot more than just building and coding. Yes, there's a coding agent inside, but you can also work with your LLMs. You can call the MCPs that we talked about prior. And you can have one place, one interface to do your research and to put that insight into action and actually deploy it into something that can directly impact your marketing efforts essentially right away. So from that point of view, in terms of using AI to really unlock leverage, in my opinion, true vibe marketing is much closer to vibe coding than workflow automation. That's a kind of an insight that I've been having after going deep into Cursor and Claude Code over the last 5 or 6 weeks. When you're in this stage, two important things that are, thematically similar to each level. If you know what questions to ask the agent or the LLM, you can essentially solve any kind of problem. And then you have to know what good looks like. You have to know what you're trying to get to. You have to be able to provide kind of a goal to this agent to give it additional context so it knows how to hit your goal. Now, you're going to have a lot of bugs and a lot of errors no matter what vibe coding platform you use. There's no true kind of one-shot ability out there to throw in a prompt and get something to the finish line unless it's a very basic like landing page or something like that. As you start interacting with other services like databases and AI APIs and things like that, you're going to run into errors. That's why it's very important to understand the logic. It's an uphill battle at first, maybe for the first week or two, and then you start to gain a lot of momentum as you unlock these different aspects of vibe coding, and you begin to understand how it all kind of works together, which I think is really a huge learning in terms of how you can get the most out of AI. When you start to use Claude Code, you'll start to see the power of agents and where a lot of this is heading. Claude Code lives in your terminal. It has access to all the files that you're pointing it to in your file directory, like the different code files that you're working on for a project, has access to the files on your computer. You can give it prompts and it can come up with a plan, and you can watch it work in real time to solve these different problems and things like that that it might be facing along the way. So this is vibing, and this is working with AI, and this is what agents are like. Workflows are not that. There's some tools that are coming out that allow you to prompt to workflows and things, but in my view, having Claude Code in the terminal that has full understanding and context of all the different steps within a workflow or a project or something that you're trying to accomplish is way more powerful in terms of making updates, adding features, gaining extensibility of this tool or workflow or whatever it is that you're building or working on. So just an example of this insight to action flow compared to both of the prior levels that we talked about. Just to remind you, we talked about sort of some prompting here to get content ideas, and then you'd have to go back and maybe execute it in a different LLM or something like that. We talked about chaining that together in level 2 with workflow automation. Still manual work to go in, set these up, optimize it, keep it working, things like that. But in this level, it's more like, hey, use the data for SEO MCP in Cursor to find programmatic keyword ideas, which are bulk keywords that are relevant to your brand that people might be searching for. So someone might be searching for ChatGPT versus Claude, ChatGPT versus Gemini, things like that. Semantically similar keywords where there's a lot of them. So go and find those relevant to my brand with the data for SEO MCP, then use a Perplexity MCP to research the best programmatic page templates. So what are the best companies doing out there when it comes to designing these pages? You might look at Zapier or something like that as a great example of what good looks like. Extract a brand guide from my website after that. Then I want you to create a PRD, a roadmap, that will allow us to create 25 web pages on our site focused on these programmatic long tail search keywords. staying as close to our brand voice and design as possible. Our goal is organic traffic, then converting those visitors to a free trial of our tool. You're going to review the PRD. If it looks good, guess what? You can go pass it right into Claude Code. You can do that in one interface right here. Claude Code can get to work. It can build the pages. It can optimize the pages. From there you can go back and have it look for any kind of like technical improvements in terms of speed or title tags, or adding other information that say LLMs would like to pick up or something like that. So it's amazing to me that you can do the research, you can build the thing, you can deploy the thing, you can scale the thing all from here, all from one place. The prior levels, you simply can't do that. You're limited in terms of the strategies that you can go and execute. Fewer people are doing this also, which means there's more alpha in it. You can go deeper, you can go faster, you can have more velocity than your competitors if you figure out how to do this. There's so many things that you can do in level 3. So you can go and scale content production on your website, like I just mentioned. You can automate like A/B tests. You can feed data back into the loop here to improve on your strategies. You could create micro tools as lead magnets. You could create a quiz. You can create new offers. You can create internal tools for your team that go and plug into workflow builders if you want to, send out notifications or have a human in the loop review process or something like that. It's very difficult to do that type of work in level 1 and level 2. So it really opens up a whole new area for you to dig into. So insight to action in one interface, way more that you can do. No Frankenflows. You're not trying to retrofit workflows as kind of SaaS or software use cases. I don't think that's optimal. So recommended tactics to get started here: sign up for something like Replit or Bolt, build a basic landing page or a simple tool, understand how to integrate an API, like let's just say the OpenAI API, into your tool or whatever it is. Layer on authentication and a database, understand how that works, learn basics of security when it comes to vibe coding. It's very important. Start to play around with things like Anima to take a Figma design and sort of match your vibe coded output as close as you can. There's a steep learning curve. I'll be honest with you. Like at first I was getting frustrated. It took me some time to figure all this out, but once I did, I feel so much more empowered. And to me, like workflows feel kind of like not quite the Stone Age, but you get the point. So yeah, it's worth the initial pain for the long-term gain, and I think you're setting yourself up for true leverage. Again, software engineers are gaining leverage relative to everyone else because they truly have agents that can go and do the work. So let's figure out how to use those for different niche use cases, different verticals, different work that we have to do outside of software engineering. Again, true vibe marketing, it's way closer to vibe coding than workflow automation. The closest thing to vibe marketing superpowers out there right now, in my opinion, is Claude Code. So what's coming next? What's coming after sort of level 3? So level 3 still requires a lot of friction. You still have to know what questions to ask. You still have to know what good looks like. You have to set up a development environment. You have to do the research and prompt for it and know what you're looking to build. You have to be able to understand the logic and help AI to identify where to focus its context on solving different issues, bugs, problems, things like that. I believe that this is currently underway. We're seeing real agents being developed, and basically what I mean by that is that level 4 is where real agents are going to be able to plan, act, and optimize autonomously. So in a marketing use case, it might be like these agents are out there, they're crawling your competitors, every single day, sifting through hundreds of different opportunities across a multitude of channels, identifying which ones could have the biggest impact on your business, and then going and creating those assets for you in your brand voice, sharing them with you, or if you're okay with it, just going ahead and publishing those or putting those live into the market. The big opportunity there is having a data feedback loop. So once these things happen, how does the AI get smarter over time based on how these are performing? This is all technically possible. Marketing's been behind. Development isn't even here yet. But as AI improves, a new form of leverage is going to be available to us where we're going to be able to set a goal. The AI does the heavy lifting. And I've been predicting this since February that this is going to happen. I think I said within the next 12 to 18 months from there. I'm building in this space. I think this is one of the biggest opportunities out there, period. So it's going to be closer to vibe coding, but the future is going to look like less onus on the end user, less dependence on the end user. That means that there's going to be mass democratization in terms of the strategies that everyone is going to be able to go and do and execute and scale. There's a lot of implications to that need to be thought through. Taste, yes, that's still important. Talking to customers, understanding the problems and where to focus all of this power is kind of really what you have to be doing. Distribution and data and all that is very important too, but this is going to definitely upend some industries, and there's going to be less advantage to some of the more traditional like marketing tactics, and things are really going to change as everyone is able to do them more and more. So another just idea to kind of paint the picture of where all this is headed. So, you'll have specialized agents for different roles. This will help with context management. So you'll have, one agent focused solely on going and digging deep into competitors and researching them and understanding, what kind of opportunities that you can go and do for your brand. You'll have another one that's focused on, creating one certain type of asset. It's going to be really good at that. You're going to have another one that, is really good at kind of understanding data and looking at trends and things of that nature. And then you're going to have a manager agent that is the layer above those, which is the one that you're going to communicate with. It's not going to be, it'll be kind of like working with a team. You're going to have a direct report. You're going to work with them. They're going to go and manage all the other stuff, and you're going to be able to kind of stay out of the weeds in a sense. So the tech isn't quite there yet, generally speaking, but it's coming soon. The tools, the piping, the logic for these multi-agent use cases are coming. AI is continuing to get smarter and smarter every single day. This is where it's all going, and I'll just say that it's coming soon without giving away too much more information. So I hope this gives you an idea kind of what vibe marketing's all about. The progression of what a vibe marketer looks like, from just using AI to starting to chain those together to really becoming a full-blown like vibe coder and orchestrator of the closest thing to real agents that we have today, and then painting the picture in terms of like where all this is headed next. So it doesn't matter where you're at, in terms of the levels right now. Keep working at it. I think level 3 is worth the pain for the long-term gain. Again, people like Naval are saying this is where the biggest leverage is. So why don't you figure out how to integrate that into your work and take advantage of kind of the latest technology. So that's all I got. Let me know what you think. What level are you at? What challenges are you facing? Where do you think all this is headed? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time.